You've noticed it. Boats in Texas that used to feel firm are suddenly negotiable. The 25 to 40-foot cruisers that were priced to sell are now sitting, and then getting cut, and then getting cut again. Listings that feel like they're quietly bleeding. And people keep asking the same question. Why are sailboats in Texas suddenly cheap? Here's the real answer. It's not one reason. It's not a crash. It's a structural correction. Texas is in the middle of a valuation realignment, where the sticker price is falling to catch up with the true cost of ownership in 2025 through early 2026. So by the end of this video, you'll understand exactly why prices are dropping, why inventory is stalling, which boats are getting devalued the fastest, which ones still hold value, and how to buy in this market without stepping on a financial landmine. And stay to the end, because I'm giving you the Texas Sailboat Deal Filter, a pre-offer checklist that instantly separates a real bargain from a cheap boat that is actually negative value. Let's get into it. First, the myth everyone loves. It's just too many boats. Directionally true. Structurally incomplete. Yes, there's more inventory. Yes, sellers are competing for fewer buyers. Yes, you're seeing bigger negotiation gaps. But the reason it feels sudden in Texas is because multiple pressure systems hit a tipping point at the same time. And when that happens, sellers don't discount, they capitulate. Because in Texas, the carrying costs don't care what you paid. Slip fees don't pause. Insurance doesn't pause. And if your boat becomes hard to insure, hard to store, or hard to use because of water levels, the market doesn't reward your nostalgia. It reprices you. So think of this market like a split screen. On one side, well-kept, documented, updated boats still sell fast, sometimes within weeks, and they still command real money. On the other side, older, neglected, poorly documented boats are getting deleted. That's why the headline, huge discounts, can be true and still not describe the whole market. Now let's walk it through cleanly. There are 5 forces driving why sailboats in Texas are suddenly cheap in 2025 to 2026. 1. The macro correction after the pandemic surge. 2. The inventory glut from first-time owners exiting fast. 3. The demographic handoff, the boomer inventory wave. 4. The infrastructure squeeze, marina consolidation and slip economics. 5. Environmental and financial friction. Lake levels, invasive species, insurance, and administrative burden. Put those together and you get exactly what you're seeing. Asking prices pretending, sold prices slipping, days on market rising, discounts widening, and the bottom tier getting liquidated. Start with force number 1, the macroeconomic correction and the post-pandemic fallout. During the COVID-era boom, boat buying surged across the country. Socially distanced recreation, sudden discretionary time, sudden capital. People entered boating who had never owned before. Then reality returned. By late 2025, the national sailboat market wasn't collapsing, it was correcting. The median sold price edged down to about $330,500. That's a 2.8% year-over-year decrease. Time to sell got slower. Median time to sale rose to 172 days, up 15%. And the negotiation discount expanded. Median negotiation discount hit 7.26%, up 11%. That combination is not a crash. That's buyers gaining leverage. And here's the key. Texas amplifies that softness because Texas ownership costs, especially slip fees and insurance, create stronger pressure to sell. So when the national market softens, Texas feels it harder, faster. Now force number 2, the used market exit wave. The pandemic created a large class of first-time owners from 2020 to 2022. In Texas, a lot of those owners are now exiting at what market observers describe as an alarming speed. They bought the dream, then they met the reality, maintenance, insurance premiums, and work-life patterns snapping back to normal. So they go from active sailors to motivated sellers. And that inventory concentrates in a very specific segment, the 25 to 40-foot middle-class cruiser. Historically, that's been the backbone of Texas sailing, and now it's the segment with the most visible glut. More listings in that range doesn't just lower prices, it changes buyers' behavior. Because when buyers see options, they stop tolerating problems. They stop paying for potential. They pay for proof. And that feeds the split market. Which brings us to force number 3, the demographic handoff. This is the wave people keep calling boomer dumping. The baby boomer generation has stabilized the sailboat market for decades. Now they're aging out of active cruising, and the exit isn't gradual, it's clustered. Sellers in their 70s are looking at 40-foot boats with complex rigging, high maintenance demands, and physical workload, and deciding it's no longer viable. So a surplus of legacy fiberglass boats hits the market at the same time. A lot of these boats were built during the 1980s and 90s production boom. They're durable, but they're aging, and the next generation doesn't want the same ownership model. Millennials and Gen X buyers are often time poor, demanding professional schedules, kids' schedules, less appetite for labor-intensive sailing projects. So preferences shift, more interest in turn-the-key-and-go powerboats. Or modern, simplified cruising sailboats that feel easier to manage with limited crew. The example that captures the buyer psychology is this. Modern, simplified cruisers like the Beneteau Oceanus 393 are attractive because they offer updated interiors and more efficient rigs that are easier to handle. So legacy boats get hit from both sides. More supply from aging owners, less demand from time-poor buyers. That's price compression. Now, force number 4 is where Texas gets brutal. The infrastructure squeeze, marina consolidation, slip scarcity, and the economics of what earns more per foot. Across the Texas Gulf Coast, Galveston to Corpus Christi, large conglomerates have been acquiring smaller, family-owned marinas and boatyards, and corporate owners re-optimize. They repurpose slips towards larger powerboats and luxury yachts because those generate higher rental revenue. And they often require less specialized infrastructure than sailboats, like mast clearance and deep draft dredging. For the average sailboat owner, this creates a dual crisis: skyrocketing slip fees and fewer places to keep the boat. In the Houston and Clear Lake area, monthly rates run about $10 per foot for basic service at smaller marinas, and over $25 per foot for premium locations. Do the math. A 40-foot sailboat at $25 per foot is $1,000 a month just to park it. And that's before insurance, before maintenance, before anything breaks. So what happens to seller psychology? Holding power collapses. Because when you're paying that burn rate, you don't wait for the right buyer. You stop the hemorrhage. And that's how suddenly cheap happens. The discount isn't about the hull getting worse overnight. It's about the carrying cost hitting a tipping point. And Corpus Christi shows the same logic in a different shape. Monthly slip rates there range roughly $8.25 to $11.25 per foot for floating slips. Fixed docks around $10 per foot. But here's where the market splits again. Catamarans. In Corpus Christi, catamaran slip rates run about $20 per foot, nearly double monohulls. That financial hurdle blocks a lot of would-be multi-hull buyers, even when demand exists for the space and stability of catamarans. So the slip market doesn't just affect prices, it shapes which boats can even be owned. Now, force number 5, environmental and financial friction. This is the part people underestimate because it feels indirect. But in Texas, the environment doesn't just affect your sailing weekends, it affects your resale value. Start inland. Texas reservoirs are volatile, extreme hydrological cycles. And as of February 2026, many reservoirs are well below conservation pool elevations, creating hazardous conditions for deep draft sailboats. This matters because deep draft plus low water equals unusable slips, landlocked boats, and expensive moves. Lake Travis is the clearest case study. Lake Travis is considered full at 681.0 feet mean sea level. In early February 2026, it was about 666.83 feet. That's roughly 14.17 feet below full pool. Yes, that's improved from the historic lows of 2023 when it hit 626.93 feet. But the volatility changes buyer sentiment permanently. Because when water drops, marinas move docks farther into channels or haul boats out. And the owner learns a painful truth. You can own a sailboat that you can't use. So what happens next? A drought-induced sell-off. Owners who don't want to gamble on the next season list the boat, and if they're on a lake, their buyer pool shrinks, so they discount to attract coastal buyers who are willing to transport the boat to deeper water. And the timing matters. From August 10, 2025 to February 10, 2026, Lake Travis dropped from about 674.97 feet, around 89.9% full, down to about 666.84 feet, around 77.6% full. That downward trajectory happens during the traditional buying season, so enthusiasm drops, inventory sits, prices soften. Now, Canyon Lake. In February 2026, Canyon Lake was about 887.85 feet. Full pool is 909 feet. That's 21.15 feet below full pool, around 60.7% capacity. When a lake sits that low, it's not theoretical. Many primary sailing slips become unusable for boats with drafts over 5 or 6 feet, so a big chunk of the buyer pool disappears for that region. And that inventory has to migrate to coastal hubs like Seabrook or Kemah to find a market. That's logistical friction, and logistical friction becomes a discount. Now, zoom out. Texas reservoir conditions show how wide the pressure is. Lake Buchanan around 94% full, only about 2.50 feet below pool. Lake Travis around 77.6%, Canyon Lake around 60.7%, and then you have extreme lows. Choke Canyon around 8.8% and Falcon around 20.5%. Even if those aren't primary sailing lakes, they shape the broader risk perception. Deep draft ownership starts to feel precarious in Texas, and precarious kills price. Now layer in invasive species, zebra mussels. Texas Parks and Wildlife has been designating more lakes as positive or infested. Fort Phantom Hill Lake joined the list in late 2025. For owners, this is a resale problem because zebra mussels attach to hulls, reproduce rapidly, foul machinery, and are hard to control. And moving a boat from an infested lake to a clean lake often requires mandatory decontamination that can be expensive. So buyers discount boats that have been moored in infested waters.
That's why you see localized price crashes on lakes like Travis, Belton, and Canyon. Sellers have to offer huge discounts to offset the perceived risk and the cost of cleaning to relocate the boat. Now stack that on top of the insurance and regulatory landscape. This is the financial pillar of the correction. Texas went through a hard market in insurance. Scarcity of coverage, double-digit increases, restrictive underwriting. By early 2026, there are signs of stabilization. Commercial insurance rates fell about 4% in late 2025, and personal lines in Texas flattened to about 0.9% average rate change in 2025, compared to the massive 23.8% spike in 2022. That sounds like relief, but here's the catch. Insurers remain extremely wary of older sailboats. Carriers want less exposure in catastrophe zones like the Texas Gulf Coast. Many standard markets now refuse to write policies for vessels over 20 years old without a recent out-of-water survey and significant upgrades, new rigging, updated electrical panels, and more. And the cost of those requirements often exceeds the value of an older 30-foot boat, so the boat becomes effectively uninsurable for a budget-conscious buyer. And when a boat is hard to insure, it has to get cheaper to sell. That's not a sale. That's compensation for friction. Now, legislation. Texas Senate Bill 1643 shifts rate setting from file and use to prior approval for adjustments exceeding 10%. The goal is to prevent sudden triple-digit premium spikes like the ones that hit between 2022 and 2024. Meanwhile, TWIA froze premiums for 2026 to provide relief to coastal residents. But that freeze carries a psychological shadow because reserves are projected to drop from $6.2 billion in 2025 to $3.8 billion in 2026. So for boat owners, the environment becomes stable for now, but uncertain underneath. That uncertainty makes buyers more selective with high-value boats, and it punishes older boats with fragile insurance outcomes. Now add the administrative burden. Texas Parks and Wildlife charges a 6.25% sales and use tax on vessels and outboard motors. On a $100,000 sailboat, that's $6,250 due within 45 working days. Registration fees run on a 2-year cycle. Under 16 feet, $32. 16 to 26 feet, $53. 26 to 40 feet, $110. 40 feet plus, $150. Titling fee, $1. Late registration penalty, $25. And early 2026 showed how bureaucracy can become market friction. Texas Parks and Wildlife did a boating system upgrade in late January, and titling and registration processing halted temporarily. That created a backlog that briefly paralyzed private sales. If you're a seller paying premium slip fees, delays are lethal. So what do sellers do? They reduce again, because they'd rather lose price than keep bleeding monthly costs.
Now, let's talk about the part that makes the discounts look even bigger than they are: dealership liquidation and the shift in what Texas buyers want. Dealers report high traffic and research-driven engagement, but the sales cycle is longer and more intentional. Buyers are tracking price drops, saving listings, waiting, and dealers are pushing incentives. MarineMax in Texas has been promoting 2026 models while clearing out remaining 2024 and 2025 inventory. They've shown dramatic price reductions on certain listings. The example that proves the incentive environment is a 2024 Aviara AV28 listed with a $103,324 discount, bringing it down to $189,000. That's not a sailboat example, but it matters because it shows the broader marine retail behavior. Clear inventory, protect the pipeline, normalize the post-boom market, and it highlights the substitution effect. A key trend is the displacement of sailboats by power catamarans. Aquila's 36 Molokai, arriving late 2025 for the 2026 model year, is marketed as purpose-built, stability and space without rigging. That product positioning is a signal. Modern Texas consumers are choosing convenience and speed over the romance and labor of sail. So traditional monohull sailboats fight for attention in a market where the turnkey narrative is winning. Now look at the premium brokerage side. Galati Yacht Sales says the 2026 market is balanced in the premium segment, neither overheated nor discounted, but their listings show steady price-reduced tags across 40 to 70-foot vessels. In Seabrook, Kemah, Rockport, price reductions appear across multiple models and years. That tells you something important. Even higher-end buyers are being selective, and when premium slows, mid-market takes the hit first. Now, let's talk about the true bottom. Abandoned boats and the auction surge. This is the floor being smashed. League City held sessions in October 2025 targeting the rise in derelict and abandoned boats. The pandemic buying spree created a surplus of vessels, and some are now being discarded as owners face costs or lose interest. When boats get abandoned, they eventually go to auction. The GSA and local municipalities sell aging vessels, and when project boats can sell for a few $100s at auction, it destroys the private market floor. Why pay $5,000 for a project boat when a similar one goes for $500? This cheap boat pressure forces private sellers of older sailboats into cheap pricing just to compete with distressed inventory. And this is where the phrase cheap boat becomes dangerous, because in this market, cheap can mean negative value. A messy, dirty boat can see valuation drop $20,000 almost instantly as buyers price remediation.
Some older 25 to 30 footers are selling for less than $2,000 because they're not worth the broker's time or the buyer's investment when slip fees keep climbing. At that point, you're not buying sailing, you're buying a problem with a monthly invoice. Now, let's close the loop on what you should do with this, because this is where the opportunity is real. If you're buying in Texas right now, early 2026 is a period of buyer leverage, but you have to target correctly. The winners still exist: well-regarded models, excellent maintenance records, updated systems, recent surveys. Those boats can be extraordinary buys because the market is punishing the average, not the excellent. But the losers can be financial landmines. Boats with deferred maintenance, no records, insurance friction, slip cost mismatch, lake level constraints, zebra mussel stigma, and administrative timing risk. So here's the Texas sailboat deal filter. Use this before you make an offer. If a boat fails 2 or more of these, it's not a deal, it's a trap. 1. What is the true monthly burn rate? Slip plus insurance plus basic upkeep. Not best case, realistic case. In Houston and Clear Lake, if you're anywhere near premium dockage, your monthly slip cost for a 40-footer can hit $1,000 or more. If holding the boat for 6 months would hurt you financially, your exit is fragile. 2. Is it insurable without a financial ambush? If the boat is over 20 years old, assume insurers want a recent out-of-water survey and may require upgrades. If the upgrades you'll need, rigging, electrical, start to exceed the value of the boat, the cheap price is just bait. 3. Is the boat turnkey by documentation, not by adjectives? The market puts a premium on clean records and recent surveys. A messy, dirty boat can lose $20,000 in perceived value instantly because buyers price remediation and risk. 4. Does the boat's location create a hidden discount? If it's on an inland lake, understand water level volatility. Lake Travis is 681 feet full pool and was around 666.83 feet in early February 2026. Canyon Lake is 909 full pool and was around 887.85 feet in February 2026. If the boat's draft and marina situation create a landlocked risk, price that into the offer or walk. 5. Does the invasive species history create resale friction? If the boat was moored in zebra mussel-infested waters, buyers may discount it, and relocating may involve decontamination. If you plan to move it to the coast, treat cleaning and compliance as real costs. 6. Are you buying a sailboat or buying time? This market is punishing time-poor ownership. If you're busy and the boat is a project, you're likely signing up to be the last buyer. That's not drama, that's the split market in 2026.
7. Price the administrative reality. Texas requires 6.25% sales and use tax. Registration and titling have defined fees, and when processing halts, like the late January system upgrade backlog, sales can stall. If your timeline matters, treat bureaucratic delay as a risk factor. 8. Watch the cheap floor problem. If the boat is priced so low that it's competing with abandoned vessel auction logic, assume you're looking at distressed inventory dynamics. Cheap might mean the owner is escaping a burden. Your job is to figure out what burden you're inheriting. Now, if you're selling, the playbook is different too. Reality matters more than hope. Invoices sell boats in 2026, not stories. If you want liquidity, you need proof. Maintenance records, surveys, updated systems. And you have to respect the carrying cost math, because waiting 6 months often costs more than cutting now. Slip fees and insurance don't wait with you. Now, let's close the loop on the title. This is why sailboats in Texas are suddenly cheap. Because Texas is going through a multi-axial structural realignment, supply surge from post-pandemic exits plus aging owner inventory, demand pivot toward powerboats and turnkey convenience, carrying costs exploding through slip economics and insurance friction, environmental constraints from low lake levels and hydrological volatility, infrastructure scarcity from marina consolidation and repurposing slips, plus invasive species stigma and administrative friction. So yes, the discounts are real, but they are not a sale. They are the market pricing in the new cost of owning a sailboat in Texas. The uncomfortable truth is this: sailboats in Texas aren't suddenly cheap. The wrong sailboats are suddenly cheap. Tell me what you're seeing right now. More listings sitting, more price cuts, more as-is language, more boats that look like they've been ignored. And if you want the next video, I'll break down exactly how to negotiate Texas sailboats in this market, how to use days on market and widening discounts without overplaying your hand, and how to spot the sellers who are cutting price to stop the burn rate versus the sellers who are still anchored in 2021.